the Jeff Wilson Jr. story is the one that gets me because they keep saying it's a freak injury.
Right.
They keep like, well, there's nothing we can learn from this. This one in particular was a freak injury. He was in the weight room, yada yada yada. He made it to the locker room, was sitting down, stood up, turned, meniscus tore, and they keep focusing on the locker room, the standing, the turning in the locker room. Hey man,
just getting out of a chair could have happened to anybody.
But I keep going back and replaying what John said, what Lynch said, what Kyle said, and they laid out the facts of the case. I'm trying to like look at this like a prosecutor or whatever, a juror. They said he was lifting, went to the locker room, got hurt. Why are they focused on the locker room when it seems to me they should be focused on the weight room? This is not a freak injury. This is a weight lifting injury. He was lifting. He went to the locker room. He sat down. He got up. He tore his meniscus. You need to be focused on the weight room. And the fact that they're not, I think, is another thing that you're seeing. Like, it's straight up denial. Denial, okay? Here's what happened. I'll tell you real quick, and then I want to get your reaction. I was talking to Will Blackman, and he was saying, look, when players go to the weight room in the facility, they're not freestyling. They get a program. They get a routine. They're supervised. You're doing X, Y, Z at this intensity with these people, and I'm watching. So I don't think Jeff Wilson Jr. just came to the Niners facility and was like, hey, man, I'm going to do everything wrong today. I'm sure he was doing exactly what he was supposed to freaking do. Yeah. Exactly what Dustin Perry and Ben Peterson wanted him to do. It was too rigorous for his body at that point in the offseason. They're supposed to know where he's at. Like, hey, maybe he shouldn't lift today because he needs 2 days off because of that monitor that you have or whatever. Whatever the case was, the plan for Jeff Wilson Jr. was wrong. And the Niners training staff is freaking culpable. And it's another piece of evidence that this training staff isn't good enough. The NHL, University of Minnesota, whatever combination isn't good enough. Jeff Wilson Jr. is Exhibit A.
Yeah. This is a tough one, man. You look at the injury and the way that you just laid it out there. It sure sounds to me a lot like a recovery or overuse injury, right? It strikes me as either a recovery issue where potentially he wasn't properly hydrated, right? Did a serious lifting session, and then things began to tighten up. And without the proper hydration, that elasticity for the muscles isn't there, right? Because it's not the tendon that's going to be weakened or cramping up or whatever. So it's the muscle holding that tendon. This again goes back to just my personal experience of overuse injuries from cycling and having a tight IT band and learning that really the band itself is a band. It's not a muscle. And therefore the issue is with the muscles that hold the band at either end not being strengthened in the proper way, and then other muscles pulling it in, causing my knee to come off center. And so it's this alignment that goes back to, is someone paying attention to the routine that you're doing? Are they aware of overuse issues you may have at any point along your skeletal or muscular frame? And then are you recovering properly? Are you hydrating? Are you hitting all of the supplements that you need to? And so to me, that jumps out. And I don't like to put any singular name out there, but there is one name that carries through that regime change throughout the shift to the NHL people that came in, and it's the gentleman coming out of Minnesota,
Justin Perry. And it seems like he does a great job of getting players stronger. I mean, look at George Kittle.
He does.
Raheem Mostert. Look at Fred freaking Warner. But Mostert's hurt. Jeff Wilson Jr. is seriously hurt. I mean, it seems, if I wasn't there, but I'm guessing Jeff Wilson did some very heavy squats that day and maybe got his knees in some compromise. Maybe he didn't need to be lifting heavy squats. Clearly, he didn't need to be lifting heavy squats. Right. I'm just guessing. Whatever he was doing, didn't need to be doing on that day in freaking May. It was May, not June. Yeah. I don't know. To me, it's a clear training staff issue. He didn't do this at home. He did this on their watch with their program, and it didn't work. And I think what they should be what they should have done is fire the training staff right there, or explain to the fans why they're not going to try, why they still believe in the training staff. But don't say it's a freak injury, because it feels like you're protecting your training staff that you set up.
Yeah, that last part I definitely agree with in the idea of call it out. Don't just say it was a freak injury. I actually side with Kyle in this idea of sports players are
Yep.
pretty superstitious.
No doubt.
And so I don't think that you can really acknowledge the, whatever you want to call it, curse, bad luck that exists within the building, because you're almost speaking it into existence with regard to players that now have to fight through the rest of the offseason and with this in the back of their minds.
Or the front
Am
of
I
their
going
minds.
to get? Yeah, right.
The front of their minds. Yeah.
Yeah. The very first thing they think about
Honestly,
as
I
they
mean,
walk into the building.
Smartest thing Trent Williams did was like, I'm not going to practice here anymore. Maybe he will, but he hasn't practiced in a long time. Nick Bosa's like, I'm just going to stay in Florida.
Nick, stay in Florida, bud.
I'm not even stepping foot there. They really need to re-examine so much of their entire operation, because it's like they have the advanced level stuff down. They're cutting edge in terms of offensive X's and O's, and their defense was even better the last few years. But practice, you can't get through spring practice. You got penalized and canceled it early and still had 3 guys go down. Like, what is this, man? Was this high school? I'm sure there are high school coaches that have, I'm sorry.